Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today here at the Yale School of Management to learn more about the SUVA Scholars Program. My name is Maria Derlipanska. I'm a Senior Associate Director of Admissions, and I'm joined by my colleague, Stephanie Hafner from the Career Development Office, as well as four current SUVA Scholars. One is in her first year, and the rest are in their final year of the program. A quick word about the format of the webinar before we get started. I will begin with an overview of the SUVA Scholars Program. Then I will turn things over to my colleague Stephanie, who will give you an idea about the resources available at the Career Development Office and how she supports SUVA Scholars in their internship and job search. Then I will ask the students to introduce themselves. I have a few specific questions for them, and then we would like to open it up for questions from you. So please make sure to get your questions ready. We're happy to talk about anything related to admissions, careers, or the student life experience. As you probably know, the SUVA Scholars Program was created to give college seniors an opportunity to enroll in an MBA program immediately after completing their undergraduate studies. So the first point that I would like to make about the program is that it's the exact same two-year full-time MBA program that all of our MBA students go through. The only peculiarity about the SUVA Scholars Program is in the way the program is structured. So young professionals entering the MBA program are required to complete a summer internship between the first and the second year of the MBA, and SUVA Scholars are required to complete an extended internship, which essentially means working full-time for a year between their first and final year of the program. Some of them actually choose to extend that year and work for a couple of years before they return to campus and complete the program, and others have chosen to actually split their internship year between two different internships, perhaps work for 6 months in the United States and for 6 months in Europe or Asia or elsewhere. So there's actually a lot of flexibility in regards to the internship requirement. SUVA Scholars comprise about 5% of the total MBA class of about 345 students, and they're fully integrated into the MBA experience, which means that we have the exact same expectations of them that we do of our regular MBA students. That means that they're equally distributed among the 5 cohorts in the class. That means that they have access to the same resources, they participate in the same student clubs, organizations, and student government. A common question that we get asked is, who is a good candidate for the SUVA Scholars Program? So I would really like to stress that we welcome candidates from all academic majors, all professional backgrounds, and all career goals. There is really no such thing as a typical SUVA Scholar. Every year, almost every single SUVA Scholar that we admit into the program comes from a different major, has had different professional experiences. So, of course, some students come from very quantitative backgrounds, and they have majored in disciplines such as economics, finance, accounting, business, and so on, but that's not a requirement for the program. Some come from the humanities with majors such as English language and literature, art history, classics, sociology, and so on. And of course, we have students coming in from the biological sciences, from majors such as engineering, computer science, law, and so on. Similarly, in regards to their professional experiences, we welcome students from a variety of backgrounds. Some of them have done the more sort of typical or standard corporate structured internships in finance, technology, consulting, marketing. But others are entrepreneurial. They have started their own ventures. Some have joined the family business. Others have extensive lab or research experience, so they come in as young scientists. So what is the committee looking for? A couple of things. First of all, because SUVA Scholars come into the program with no full-time work experience, we place a stronger emphasis on academics That means, one, obviously your academic record, your transcript, how you've done in school, have you challenged yourself intellectually, but also the test scores, they're a part of it. We accept both the GMAT and the GRE. And also the academic letter of recommendation. And I'll say a few additional words about that in just a second. Secondly, we expect to see clearly defined goals. We're looking for students that have a very strong interest in something, passion for something. They have a very clear idea of what they want to do professionally and basically want to use the MBA degree as a career accelerator. So make sure to define those, especially your short-term goals, clearly in your application. And finally, we expect to see evidence of quantitative skills, regardless of what major you come from, right? So if you come from a humanities background, that is perfectly fine. It's okay if you don't have a lot of quantitative courses on your transcript, but then we'll be more heavily relying on your test scores. And again, we accept both the GMAT and the GRE. A quick word about the application requirements. The process for applying is absolutely the same, whether you're applying as a young professional or as a Silver Scholar to the program. There are only two small exceptions. One is related to the letters of recommendation. Young professionals are required to submit two professional letters of recommendation, and Silver Scholars are required to submit one academic and one professional. So professional obviously means somebody that served in a supervisory capacity, maybe a manager supervisor at an internship, whether it's on or off campus. And academic should be submitted from a professor, an academic advisor, a dean, a counselor, somebody that is obviously familiar with how you've done in school, and again, whether you've challenged yourself and so on. And secondly, the interview. Silver Scholars are always interviewed by two members of the admissions committee. It's still one interview that lasts for about half an hour, but two members of the committee are present during the interview. The last thing that I would like to say is we have 9 joint degree programs, and as a Silver Scholar, you're absolutely welcome to apply to any of the joint degree programs that we offer. So you can pursue an MBA along with another master's or JD, MD, or PhD at Yale University. So I'll stop here. I'll turn things over to my colleague, Stephanie.
Thank you, Maria. It's nice to meet you. My name is Stephanie Hafner. I am a career coach at the Career Development Office, which we call the CDO. So you might hear that as people start talking about their experiences. I'm really the primary liaison that works with Silver Scholars. So I also sit on the admissions committee. So I will see you from kind of beginning all the way till when you arrive on campus, till the very end when you come back as a second year and you look for your job full time. So in that entire process, I am the dedicated liaison for Silver Scholars and throughout your journey here at SOM. In terms of professional development activities that the CDO offers and that I offer specifically for the Silver Scholars, we typically, it's usually a small group, so this year's class is about 16 students. At the very start of fall, we have the group get together with me, and we, for example, started something with StrengthsFinder, which is a self-assessment, identifying your own strengths, unique strengths that you could leverage in cover letters, interviews, networking. So you basically start with that foundational element of, what your unique value proposition is. And then throughout the fall, what I offer is opportunities to connect with other Silver Scholars. So for example, I offered this year a second year panel where the students that just returned from their internships, I'm looking at Ashna and Ron because they were on it. They come back and talk about their wonderful experiences while they were gone, and there's a lot of learning that occurs because it's a very unique program in the sense that it's not the typical just a summer internship. It's a 1 up to 5 years of an internship. You could really structure it which way you want. The great thing about the Silver Scholars is there's a wonderful alumni community as well. So throughout the fall, I also offer 2 other panels that are focused on alumni, and They could be a few years out, they could have just graduated, or they could be 10 years out. The program started in about 2002, so we have over 100 alumni to choose from and to have kind of highlight at SOM. And what I found is that the alumni community is incredibly receptive and very strong and very cohesive. Certainly you guys can tell me whether or not that's true, but it's a great community to tap into since the program is so unique. One thing from a career perspective that I just wanted to reiterate is that the CDO is not a placement, doesn't follow a placement model. So every student kind of enters has a unique path, and whatever path they choose is one they set for themselves. We are certainly here to support you throughout the way, but it is not, a model where we find a job and, for each student. And just to elaborate on kind of what do students do during their time internships, and you'll hear certainly from the students here and the panel here, but that could range from, traditional things like banking and consulting, so, Citi, Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs. I'm just listing off some internships that my current students on Absentia are at.
Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley as well. And consulting, BCG, we've had people intern at Bain, all the way to technology at Tesla, Dell, Blue Apron, all the way to kind of social enterprise nonprofits. So for example, we have a student right now at the Obama Foundation as well as GiveWell. Post SOM, so just to note in terms of like where you're landing in terms of your internships, for the more traditional industries like banking or consulting, because there's less experience from the students that are entering, they typically land at the analyst level. Yet when they graduate, or associate level, but when they graduate, they're pretty much on par in terms of salary, in terms of full-time opportunities, as any second year. So pretty much, you take that internship year and you come back and you're completely on the same page as any other second year in your class. So in terms of outcomes, same with, roles at Bain, Credit Suisse, Barclays, Unilever, Adobe, and like product management roles. And then 5 years out, I just took a sampling. We have somebody in senior director in strategy at T-Mobile, a general manager, head of distribution marketing at Kraft Heinz. We have somebody who's head of business development at Soko Glam, which is a Korean e-commerce beauty retailer, somebody who's a COO who started on his own startup venture, and somebody who in banking who's a VP at Lazard. So it really, if you can tell from the examples that I'm giving, there's so many ways in which you can take your career, and the CDO is really here to support you in any which way and any which direction that you choose.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Sure.
So as I said, we have a few questions for the panelists. And in the meantime, again, please start thinking of your questions and start sending them. I'll be keeping an eye out for your questions. So I would like to ask our students to introduce themselves. If you can just maybe give us your name, year in the program, undergraduate major and institution, and then tell us a little bit about why you decided to apply to the Silver Scholars Program in your senior year of college. We can take us a little bit back about why did you think at the time it was a good fit for you?
Absolutely. I guess I can start. Hi, I'm Ashna. I am, graduating in May 2019. Seems very close. I graduated from Princeton with a degree in mechanical engineering in 2015. To answer your question about sort of why I decided to apply, I was in my last 2 years of college and working in a material science lab at the time, actually thinking about going and getting a PhD. And my professor really wanted me to do that. I'd spent 2 years in lab at that point and decided that that's not what I wanted to be doing for the next 5 years. It was a big commitment to make. And I was working in an energy storage lab, so I was doing energy-related stuff, but now I wanted to come at it more from a business side of things. And I think the Silver Scholars Program, again, offering that 1 year of business training before you step out into the workforce, I thought I'd be uniquely equipped to add value. After having done a year of the program. And of course, Yale had a very strong presence in the clean energy space, which is what I was interested in. So just kind of, why Silver Scholars was, I was coming in from 2 years of working in a lab and needed that grounding in business. And then, why Yale was the clean energy. I mean, we have the energy mafia, as we call them. So, it was absolutely incredible, and I can, talk about that later. But
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ram, also like a returning silver scholar, basically second year MBA here. I graduated from UCLA in 2016, major in communication studies and economics. In terms of why silver scholar, I spent about 3 years doing internships in the media and entertainment industry in LA when I was an undergrad. So at that time, I'm thinking about like, instead of just doing like the entry-level coordinator roles, I'm more interested in something that's strategic, like business development or corporate strategy related roles. And I was talking to people, it seems like MBA would be a right choice to me, and Silver Scholar, it's uniquely positioned to allow you to come into like an MBA program as like a college senior without full-time experience. That I think like that's like something that I really need at that time. And also like up to Ashna's point, the integration with Yale University is also something really drive me here to this program.
Thank you.
I'm Abby. I just graduated undergrad in May 2018. I went to the University of Minnesota, studied finance and accounting, and the reason I decided to apply to Silver Scholar is that, well, there's one sort of logistical aspect and then one personal. Logistically, I was sort of on track to graduate in 3 years, but had a summer internship lined up and was really looking for something purposeful to do in a 4th year of school. And this sort of allowed me to earn credit towards an MBA in my 4th year, and I found that exciting. On a personal note, I found in my undergrad studies I was getting more and more specialized into finance, and I was sort of on this very finance-specific career path, and I wanted an opportunity to sort of go broad again before working full-time because I actually wanted to do consulting. And the Silver Scholars Program allowed me the opportunity to take a breadth of coursework before starting hopefully a generalist role in the consulting space. And that's more the personal reason why Silver Scholars.
Hi everyone, my name is Mohammed. I'm from Kuwait and I'm in the 2nd year of my MBA. I graduated undergraduate from American University in Washington, D.C. with a major in finance and marketing. And I've always had an entrepreneurial ambition, whether that was individually entrepreneurial or even with some of our family ventures. And I found the Silver Scholar program a really exciting opportunity to take everything I've learned in the 4 years of undergraduate, combine it with all the different entrepreneurial ventures I've been a part of, take it all together, kind of reflect on it, and add to it a real dose of learning here in the core curriculum. I spent 3 years working between my 1st and 2nd year, and what launched my work in those 3 years was actually a couple of projects I did on some classes here at SOM, specifically in the supply chain class, where we did an entire study on the restructure of the supply chain of a company I work with. And after presenting that to the board of the company, they said, it looks great, how about you come and try to implement it? And I told them I have a timeline of 1 year. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. But it was a really great project, a really great opportunity. And I feel like that 1 year of school plus those 3 years have already advanced me a lot in the sort of knowledge, the experience, and the value I can bring to any future ventures.
Great, thank you so much. So my next question is related to student life. If you can tell us a little bit about the clubs, student organizations, affinity groups that maybe you're a part of, that you've gotten involved in, and maybe along those lines, say a few words about the community.
Absolutely. So I guess, one of the clubs that I became very involved with, in fact, during my gap year, I actually served as the president of the Energy Club, which I don't know in hindsight if I would recommend doing. but it was absolutely, the Energy Club was, sort of my go-to place, and, that's the industry I've always wanted to build my career in and want to still build my career in. And so I served as the president of that. And then the Finance Club, because I did a banking internship, was an incredible resource to me. We have weekly meetings, where they go over sort of the stages of the process, and I think Rand sat through a little bit of that as well, first year. So, I think the Energy and the Finance Club was kind of were kind of my go-to places my first year and continue to be so even now. I think in terms of the community, what I loved about Yale is this focus on the double bottom line. I think they think beyond the single bottom line, and there are lots of times when professors will come into a class and say, oh, you would only be able to have this conversation at Yale because, you'll have people from a nonprofit background and people who've come in from like banking or consulting and they're kind of hashing it out and land acquisition and, tribal displacement. And those conversations, again, can only be had at Yale. And they said this is very different from any other business school. And that's, I love being here for that very reason.
Thank you.
Yeah. As just Ashna mentioned, finance club is something that I was involved in my first year, and beyond that, media and entertainment club is also something that I'm very involved into it. It's I remember in my first year we flew to LA to do like a Paramount case competition with some fellow MBAs, which is like a really cool experience given by the media and entertainment club. And this year, as a returning silver scholar, I'm more involved in the consulting club because of my post-MBA goal to be in consulting. Is actually this club helped me a lot throughout my recruiting process and helped me successfully land a full-time position there. So I think really appreciate, I feel like student clubs are not only like a career choice for me, like people who support you in your career path, but also like the people you hang out with and really become friends with a lot of times also come from student clubs.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm involved with student government, so I'm the first year's CDO chair, which is brand new, so I haven't done too much related to that role yet, but I'm excited about that. And then consulting club, they meet every week, and then we meet in small groups within consulting club outside of the weekly club meetings, so that takes up a little bit of time. I think I've also attended, I'm a first year, so I attended the Kickoff Media and Entertainment Club, the Kickoff Finance Club, and one thing, I'm not a regular member to those clubs now, but one great thing about Yale SOM is you are encouraged to attend as many club meetings as you want to. They're all free for students, which is unique, I think, to our program. So you can explore many interests, which I think is very representative of Yale SOM's cohort of students in the fact that we all come from different backgrounds. And then once you're here, you're continuously sort of pushed to explore that breadth of club opportunities. So, yeah.
Yeah, so following up a bit on what Abby mentioned, I am actually involved. Technically, I'm signed up for maybe like 10 or 12 clubs or something like that. And although I'm not particularly involved with any really in-depth, obviously the Entrepreneurship Club is one of the most clubs that I interact with. However, I do read the newsletter of every club and see if there's anything anywhere where it's interesting for me. Any panels, any talks, any kind of resources that they offer. And so I try to make use of all the different clubs available here, and there really are a lot, and a lot where a number of great conversations are being had. I'm also personally interested in the soccer club, which I'm a part of, and we have actually a tournament coming up this week for the Yale Cup. But a little bit about the culture of SOM, as everyone on the panel already mentioned. It really is a very unique culture. We have a lot of students from a lot of different backgrounds, and they really are having some really tough arguments or negotiations in class that I've never experienced anywhere else, and it is really exciting. A lot of things that I've never thought of, given my background, you'll hear from another student in a non-profit background or from a governmental background. Or from an energy background, we have a lot of input as well that makes you, as a future manager, really see things from a more holistic point of view, and really allows you to network and get along with a vast range of people who, for myself, I've made a lot of great friends from my first year that I'm still very much in contact with, a lot of great friends from this year, and I hope going forward as well.
I actually just want to make one sort of final comment to kind of round out what Mohammed was saying. What I love about SOM is how collaborative our culture is, and I know that word gets used and thrown around a lot. But I think at least I came into business school with this sort of idea of what a typical business school student would be like, like cutthroat competition, etc. And it is the antithesis of that. Even in Finance Club, just to give you an example, the first day that we walked in, the president at the time, he just said, there's one of you getting one offer. You can't, like, you're getting 10 offers, there's only one of you. You're not going to go to 10 different places. So help yourself, but also help everyone else in this room get offers, because that's how we all collectively do well as a group, and Yale SOM does well. And so I think, I think there's this huge sense among the student community that is not just about maximizing your own sort of potential or your own gain. It's
but acting with the philosophy that your success is also my
that's
success.
kind of the ethos of the institution, and I can't wax eloquent about that. I can wax eloquent about that, but
Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'd like to ask you from a career perspective, each of you, can you talk to us about your professional aspirations, and have they changed since you applied to the program? Probably, maybe. And where can you talk about your internships and what role you played?
yeah. You want to go first?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. My professional aspiration definitely changed. As I just mentioned, coming to SLM really wants a strategy type of role in media entertainment industry. I actually successfully landed a business development strategy position in the media company called Time Inc. in New York, and spent a year there, and also did corporate strategy and Twitter in the past summer. But throughout these experiences, feel like my aspiration kind of changed. I feel like something that I'm really interested in is not just about this industry, but more about the strategic thinking, and really want to escalate my own experience to a larger level, expose myself to a diverse set of industries and more impactful problems. So therefore, I decided to pursue a consulting career after I come back as a second-year student, and will join BCG as a consultant after graduation.
Great. Thank you.
Which is random now. Come back to me.
So as I mentioned a bit earlier, for myself, I had a passion for entrepreneurial ventures. In my year in between the classes, or my 3 years between the classes, I joined one of the fastest growing home retailing companies in the Middle East. It is a company that was founded and started in Kuwait and has just now expanded into Saudi Arabia. And there I started my project where I analyzed this company and suggested changes to its supply chain to make it more competitive and really take on the market by storm. And I did just that. I went into the first year, implemented this project, and really, the transition of taking something from a study you did, in this nice environment of Yale, between all the different libraries and all the different nice classrooms and all this stuff, and taking it to the ground and building distribution networks, managing teams. I started with the company managing a team of 2 people. I ended the last 3 years overseeing a department of over 400 people. And it was an incredible experience. And it really gave me a lot to think about this year, where I'm coming in now, knowing that I've gained a lot of strength in the operational exercises. I have a lot of strength in the financial aspects. But what I actually learned in that internship year was that I need to work a lot on my human capital skills. So how do I develop a team? How do I make sure they're running on the same objectives? How do I align all the incentives? How do I choose the right people for the team? That was really what I struggled with most, and it's something I've never thought about before. I always thought, I'm good with people. I know how to I can do this. Why not? But when you're really in a role of responsibility and decisions need to be carried out, or they have really serious consequences, not only on yourselves and on your company, but actually on your entire team. If one department's doing poorly, you're risking the jobs of all these people, and as the leader there, you take kind of responsibility for that. And so I've focused this year. I've also had an interesting conversation with Stephanie on how I can strengthen myself in the human capital area, how I can better improve my capability to lead teams and to build teams. And this is something I'm kind of looking at now. So how do I combine my entrepreneurial desires with an ability to improve in the human capital aspect?
Great. Thank you, Mohammed.
So I actually spent my gap year, interning at Barclays the first summer. I did an analyst internship. I received a return offer, decided not to go back. I actually went and worked instead at a renewable energy investment fund in New York called Greenbacker Capital. Absolutely loved that experience. Loved the people that I work with. Incredibly smart, incredibly intellectually curious. And if given the option, might go back. But again, they're a small firm, so just hiring needs, etc., need to line up. I think in terms of how my goals have changed, it's interesting. I think I'm still iterating on them right now. I think when I came in, as I alluded to earlier, I was very much the pendulum swung sort of in the opposite direction, where I was at a PhD and then I went, okay, I want to do business and I want to do just banking, and kind of go into like big bad corporate America or whatever. And now I think I'm starting to, because there is a part of me that's really missing the quantitative side and maybe doing a little bit more technical programming sort of thing. And I'm starting to look at like quantitative finance and trying to sort of find a happy medium. And so that's what I'm focusing on right now, is maybe going back and doing a little bit of infrastructure finance for a bit. But to be very honest, I think quantitative finance is where I see myself in. So I'm actually working with a professor, Toby Moskowitz, here on a couple of projects, and trying to see if something comes of that. But I'll keep you posted.
Great. Wonderful.
So I am the only first year, so I haven't done an interim internship quite yet. But I guess in terms of professional aspirations, I do really want to do consulting. It's something that I think I've known for a while that I wanted to do. And I think coming to SOM, in terms of what changed, I think coming into this, I thought I would maybe spend the interim time at a corporate company and I would gain that real world experience before venturing into consulting. But I think I've had time to reflect since coming here at SOM, and one thing in particular that I find meaning and value in is that client services aspect of the work, where that final deliverable is really to help somebody else. And that's, again, echoes sort of SOM as a whole. But so for me, that helps solidify that I think the best path in that interim period would be consulting if that opportunity does arise. So I think that is something that changed. I don't necessarily have anything laid out yet for that middle period, but figuring that out.
Great, thank you. And my last question is in terms of resources. So what CDO resources have been helpful to you guys in your search? And can you talk a little bit about the alumni network, either the Silver Scholar alumni network or just the general broad 7,000 SOM alumni we have?
Yeah. So I guess I can talk about during my banking search as well as when I went to Greenbacker. So during the banking search, I think at the time we had Holly at the CDO, and she was sort of the in charge, and now we have Audrey for all the finance stuff. And I think just going to Holly and talking about what my plans were, why I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and she kind of served as a career coach as opposed to just saying, oh, look at these companies. It was more, what do you want to do and why are you here? So I think really sort of zooming in on that really helped me with my search. I think also in terms of the CDO pointing you in the right direction. When you're doing analyst recruitment, that's not necessarily happening through SOM, it's happening through the undergrad network. So the way I got my Barclays position was I went to an undergrad women's event where I met a director at Barclays, and she was wonderful, and she just kind of put my resume in front of her boss and said, you at least have to give her an interview. She came and met me, and I liked her, so at least give her so that's how I sort of got myself into that process. So I think, in terms of CDO, just pointing me in the right direction, like these are the things, here are the resources at your disposal, now go use them how you want. In terms of alumni network, I mean, Kelly, of course, was one of the biggest examples of like broader Yale, because she was a Yale undergrad, but also my boss at Greenbacker was an SOM alum. And so I cold emailed him and reached out and said, hey, I love the renewable energy industry. He's like, okay, like come, let's get on the phone. So I got on the phone with him. Within half an hour, he's like, oh, you seem to know like a fair bit about this industry for someone who's never worked in it. Why don't you come into the office? Went to on a Friday to the office for 4 hours. I had a job like the next week for the year. So, just speak to Clean Energy Mafia and the strength of like the broader Yale network. I mean, I'm a living example of that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think I also benefited a lot from CDO resources. Actually, 3 jobs that I've had actually come from through CDO. So the first my position at time was actually joined time as a regular summer MBA intern. That's also come from the resume book from CDO. And then because of that internship, I was able to extend that to a full-time position for that year. And then in my past summer internship in Twitter, it's also coming from CDO. Like they reached out to me because they saw my resume, including the Yale resume book, which is awesome, and did the interview and they got that position. And then now, like for my full-time at BCG, it's like a lot of it's just like through on-campus recruiting and a lot of help from alumni, SLM alum, and also from the consulting club, because I feel like my experience is like every time that I reach out, they're gonna respond to you. Like it's like 100%. It's really helpful, just like talking to them, build out those connections and networking with them, and finally let the internship opportunity. It's a lot of through help from the SLM and also like the broader Yale University resources.
Awesome.
I've worked a decent amount with the CDO earlier on, and I think one thing that was, I was very grateful Stephanie did is she talked to me over the summer actually on the phone. I had something arise with an offer expiration date for the interim period, and sort of we worked through how to get that extended. So there's conversations like that happen, and I think within my first couple weeks on campus, she redid my resume and my cover letters and worked with all of that. So that was very helpful. I think in terms of the network, my first month on campus, I went to a lot of the Yale undergrad sort of coffee chats and networking events, and those were incredibly valuable. And I went in, I think, with a little bit underconfidence in the sense of, oh, I'm not a Yale college person, and they're not going to be as interested. And I think there is that greater Yale community. I wasn't looked at any differently, and that was something that I kind of checked myself with as I went to more and more of them. Also, I think one thing that's unique is, I don't know if other people had this, I still had access to my undergraduate institution's career center. And so that was a very valuable tool in the sense of there would be some things I might apply to through the Yale College sort of application, but when I applied through my undergraduate system, people would reach out and I would connect there. So you kind of have multiple avenues by which to explore how to get that interim period offer, because you're not quite an MBA and you're not quite an undergrad, but that kind of makes it more fun and there's more opportunity. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah, sure. I think most of it, was covered already. But for myself, I use the CDO a lot as a career coach, more than I guess a way to find opportunities. Although there are many opportunities, and I see them all the time. I've had conversations with Stephanie and also in my first year here about kind of what my aspirations are, how I can better build myself as a person to get to these. So it's not just about resumes and cover letters, although they will take you down on those anytime. But it is really also a great resource just to have someone to talk to get some ideas and to get sort of a mentorship on what are the next steps to take. I've also found a lot of great resources in a lot of the professors here. In fact, I'm working right now on an independent study with the same professor who led our supply chain course on another study for the same company on how to even advance that even further. I've just now started another sort of study or case with the organizational behavior department and addressing a bit of the human capital issues that I've been facing. I talked with Professor Barron, who's one of the leaders of the organizational behavior department here, and kind of spoke to him a bit about the challenges I had, the companies I faced, the issues we're having with growth, and he found it so interesting that he asked that we work on a case together, which is quite exciting, and something that I'm excited to start up as well. With alumni, the resources are really endless. It's really a great opportunity. You can reach out to anyone, anywhere. In fact, one of the most shaping alumni interactions I had was during my first year orientation. We had Austin Ligon come in and speak to the class, and he's the founder of CarMax and some other entrepreneurial ventures. And right after the talk, I saw him sitting. I asked him if I could have a chat. He said, yeah, and we talked for about an hour and a half about all the different career opportunities, what I should pursue. As a first year in the Silver Scholar, you kind of want to do everything, but And so, even talking to him, I was like, yeah, I want to do consulting, I want to be a banker, but I also want to be an entrepreneur and save the environment. And he's like, what are we talking about? What's going on?
You just summed up the panel. Thank you, Mohammed.
Having that conversation with someone from the field, really kind of giving you that time when he really didn't need to, but he was there, he was happy to have this conversation, and it's kind of led these past 4 years of my life, based on a lot of advice that he gave, that I built on with others. And so again, the CDO, all the professor networks here, the alumni networks, really, really great resources.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have a few questions from the audience. What does a typical day look like for students? How much time is dedicated to studies, and what does social life look like? So I think at the core of the question is, how do you balance, right? Recruitment, academics, having fun.
Wow.
Anyone can jump in.
I'll talk as a first year. So I'm in the core curriculum, which is something all MBAs take. My day typically starts, I'll preface with, I think it's a little, the classes are difficult, but compared to undergrad, I think it's less competitive in the sense of no one's vying for the 4.0 GPA and 100% on everything. So there's a little bit more of this communicative feel of the classes, which I think then you don't spend so much time on the academics. There's a lot more time spent on recruiting and club activities. So a day in the life, I'll just walk through, I don't know, last week. I woke up I'll go through a Wednesday. I woke up, went for a run, went to class at about 10, was in class until 11:30, grabbed lunch with some people on my learning team. We talked through some assignments, then went to class in the afternoon. And then at night, there was a consulting club meeting. I went to that. And then after that, I went to a recruiting event. You network with alums that come back to talk to students. And then I'd go home and maybe do an hour of homework, have dinner, and go to bed. So it's kind of, that to me is a typical day. I don't know if anyone else has something else, but it's not, in terms of academics, the biggest shock for me coming in here was it's kind of like a pass-fail in the way it's set up, and that allows for a lot more time to be spent on recruiting and clubs, which is kind of nice.
I feel like second year is definitely a little bit different from first year.
Okay.
I remember
I remember that. Yeah.
coming to this program, like kind of like want to do everything. It's literally like 8 to 12. Like in the beginning, like just like a few weeks, and then you started to figure out what are the things that I really, really want to devote your timing to, and gradually navigate through that and find your own path. And then for second year, like things become much easier. Like you started to take electives, you choose the classes that you're interested in, because there are a lot of breaks that we offer, so you plan like tons of travel plans, lining up for the rest of the year. Like it's like exciting time. So like it's like depends on what time of the year that you're in. It's different.
Also, social life is awesome. I mean, let's talk about like a Thursday or a Saturday night, Wednesday, right? No. But seriously, I think student life does a fantastic job of putting together events. I mean, we have the Harvard Yale tailgate coming up, and then as Rand mentioned, you had breaks, and people had. I know this year people had trips planned to like Poconos, to Mexico City, to Peru. Like there were just people traveling all over the world, and it happens break after break. So there's a little bit of that. And then you have Gypsy, which is if you enjoy dive bars, I suppose you'll enjoy Gypsy. But and New Haven has some of the best pizza around. I think I should mention that. So I think any conversation would be remiss without you can't not mention that. So people you go out, get good food. There's awesome bars in the area. There's other students from other grad schools that you end up becoming friends with, going to Gypsy or outside. So it's social life is great. I mean I really enjoy it. I didn't expect it to be like as a happening, I suppose. But, it is.
Yeah, and just to echo that, first year is definitely a lot more intensive.
Yeah.
Not in the bad way, but in the sense that you have so many things to do that your schedule gets filled every day, and every day it's with new things and different things. So, as Abby mentioned, classwork is a core part of your day. So you spend most of your mornings and afternoon in class. But anything after that is a mix between professional and social. Especially in the first year, a lot of students and a lot of people will take a lot of initiatives to throw, class-wide events, where they invite the whole class to their house. You have 300 people in a house, just like, really cozied up and having all these different conversations, meeting everyone. And so you really get close to the 300 or so students here. You know each of them, you know them by name, you know what they're doing, you know what they're after. So it's a really, really tight-knit community where everybody helps each other out whenever they need to. Second year for me has been more reflective in a way. It's been a time to come back and kind of decompress, look at myself a bit more critically, what I want to improve, how I want to do that, and so I think that there's a lot between class, social, and professional. It's a nice mix.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So there's another question about global exposure and global experiences. And for our audience, we actually have a global studies requirement here at YLSOM. Can you talk a little bit about how you took advantage of those global experiences? So there's actually a menu of 5 different options that students can choose from in order to fulfill the requirement.
Sure. So I basically went on IE. So IE is like international experience, which during spring break, which is around like March or your first year, you typically go with like a group of people to one part of the world. So I know there are IEs in like New Zealand now, the Balkans. I went to the Balkans. And then you have Israel and like a bunch of, and all of these, and all of these IEs are usually focused on one particular area. And I think Balkans, for instance, was actually about like rebuilding, post the, sort of the dismantling of Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, and the Bosnian wars in the 90s. So, you kind of do some classwork with the professor in the first quarter, and then in the spring break, you kind of go and meet really senior level officials, at these places. In terms of also international exposure, and again, I think this is so important because people take trips together. People actually do their own IE, like students organize their own IE, and we had that organized like when we were first years. The second years actually organized a trip to Russia, and went and met like the head of the central bank in Russia and some really senior level officials there. So people themselves who are because again it's such a big part of our student community is international. They take initiative themselves to organize these trips as well. So outside of the resources of the school, there's a lot of other stuff going on as well.
Yeah. Just to building up on that, yes, like IE is a great way. Like I went to Israel and we visited a lot of startups in Tel Aviv, and also took a culture trip in Jerusalem, which is like a really great experience to me. We're also like a couple of students will actually drive to West Bank, which is a really fun experience too. Yeah. And beyond that, and Asha also mentioned, there are also career trips to international cities. For example, I know like Finance Club offers trips to Hong Kong because there are a lot of investment banks over there, and there are also trips to China, there are trips to Russia, like there are trips to a lot of countries just to get career opportunity, like career exposure to there. And also in terms of like, I think in classroom, there are also students coming from all these different continents and the countries, and that's a lot of international exposure. Just give my personal experience, like we have smaller learning teams during first year where you do group assignments together. Like our learning team, 5 of us actually come from, like each of us come from a different ethnicity and a different continent, which is like a really fun experience. When we talk about group projects, everybody contribute in different ways, which I really
Mine was like that as well,
experience.
now that I think about it. Yeah, my small learning team also was like complete, they were different countries. Wow, didn't know that.
I also did the IE experience, went to Japan, was an amazing trip. The professor was really knowledgeable, and we really got to meet a lot of great companies and a lot of great manufacturing facilities and things like that. But also there are really great opportunities to study abroad in the global network of schools. We have so many opportunities to study abroad in so many different countries at the top schools of each of these countries. So I'm really, I love Barcelona for the football, but also for the school. And so I'm considering, potentially doing my spring year in there. But you also do have a lot of international things linked with clubs as well as the classroom. I find to be very international, and although there is a strong textual of cases and such on the US front, but a lot of the topics we discuss are global topics, and a lot of the issues we try to address are global issues. And so it is a very well-rounded international experience.
Great, thank you. So we have very little time left, but I would like to ask you if you can maybe give a quick word of advice to those that are working on their application right now and are gearing up to apply in round 2. Again, in no particular order, just a very quick word of advice.
Maybe I was closest to this.
So I think the biggest piece of advice I would have is try to have one sort of coherent story throughout the application. So if your essay touches on sort of your aspirations of what you want to do or some past lived experience, make sure there's something on your resume that can back up why you want to do that. Or there's something that shows, oh, okay, I see how she kind of got interested in this. And then maybe in your interview, bring it up again, and sort of having that consistent message, I think shows that a level of maturity that they might be looking for in Silver Scholars, but also then it's easier for the committee to sort of convey why you would be a good fit if you're not jumping around all over the place. And then also with the interview, I think some people have already done it if you applied round 1, but come in, think of it as a conversation. I think I was a mix of nervous and excited, but it was a really good interview experience, and they just want to get to know you and think of it like a conversation. Yeah, that's sort of it.
I guess, my advice is not so much about the application as much as like for people who are still debating whether this program is even for them. I think if you're the sort of person who sees, and I wasn't like that initially, but I think I'm becoming better at this, can get comfortable with uncertainty. I think, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in my career was careers are not like ladders, they're like jungle gyms. So sometimes you'll, move horizontally, you'll probably take one step back to take 2 forward eventually. And you really need to be, just embrace that and be comfortable with uncertainty. So if you see yourself, being that way and maybe embracing that uncertainty and honestly finding it exciting beyond a certain point, like not knowing what you're doing next year, and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to wing it and I'm going to plan for it as much as I can, but maybe life has other plans and I'm just going to go with it and it's going to turn out awesome anyway. It's like life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? So if you see yourself being that sort of person or embracing that kind of lifestyle, then do this program. I mean, you'll love it.
Yeah, I really echo that. And also, like, I feel like passion is really important, like knowing what you are really, like, you really want. Like, probably like you have like an overarching goal and you understand how Silver Scholar program can help you to achieve that goal is extremely important because, like you always have the chance to wait to work for a couple of years and go through an MBA program, but why you want to do an MBA at this moment, that's like, I think a story that's tailored to you in combination with all your academic and professional work. And beyond that, also like study hard and do great in tests.
Thank you, Ren.
Extreme, like it's not like the overarching factor, but like it's
like table stakes.
Like, yeah,
it helps. It helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
It helps.
Yeah, as everyone mentioned, the overarching concept of be passionate about something and reflect that passion really will help you stand out in the Silver Scholars program. Even as we've seen here, a lot of these passions may change or evolve or pivot, but coming into this program, you really need to be committed to at least your first passion or the first stage of what you want to do. For me, it really was like a booster shot the first year of the curriculum. Really puts you a step ahead of anyone really at that level of life. So 1 year out of school, you're really a step ahead when you've got a year of MBA core curriculum under your belt and you're able to present yourself to corporations, companies, ventures, whatever it may be, in a very different light. But yeah, be passionate about something, reflect that passion, and go for it. I mean, it's a great program. It's really very flexible and it's very geared towards you and your passions. You want to do 1 year out, do it. You want to do 6 years out, do it. You want to do entrepreneurial.
We don't encourage that. Okay.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
You accommodate it.
Thank you. We do.
I actually heard of someone, I think my first year was like 7 years or 8 years.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
That guy started the company, sold the company, came back. It was a crazy, crazy guy, but it was great.
But I feel like Silver Scholar is really tailored to you. I think everybody has
Yeah,
a
it's-
very different journey.
And I think, which is why getting comfortable with the uncertainty is so important, because it's such a flexible program
Yeah.
that you really need, like, that flexibility can be liberating but also debilitating at the same time. So you need to know what to do with it.
Can I add 2 more logistical tiny little things? If you're concerned about a resume, there's a template on the SOM website somewhere.
Yeah.
Use that. It's super helpful. I think some people may not be super familiar with a resume template.
It's in the application itself, so
Okay.
thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's very convenient. And then letters of recommendation. If you don't have I think this was something I talked to people were a little concerned about, someone who's high enough to write a letter of recommendation and you're kind of worried about the professional one. I asked someone who interviewed me when I worked at a company and we had kept in contact. So that's a great way to sort of find someone who's seen you in that professional setting. But I know as an intern, which is likely what your experience is, you don't have a lot of direct superiors to ask. So be creative in that process, I guess. Anyway.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to thank the panelists and thank you for everyone that tuned in. We'll follow up with a message. We're happy to share our contact information, our email addresses, so you can follow up with us individually with any additional questions. Thank you again so much for joining us.